Hello everyone, and welcome back to some more Bloons on the channel. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic day as usual. So for this time around, what I did was instead of fast forwarding the gameplay while it happened, I let it run at normal speed, and then in editing sped it up by 2 times. The reason I did that is because for a few minutes I was speeding up in the game, and it was lagging a lot more and a lot more often. When I did that, so that is why I decided to speed it up by 2 times in the editing. Um, it's still going the same speed. It's just from a different source. Actually, that didn't make any sense. It's still the same speed. It's pretty much that. It is from what I meant by like a different source is it's from editing software rather than game. But since it's the same speed both ways, so there's no difference. So it doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, so we made it pretty far late game. I'm not gonna say like what round or anything because I don't want to ruin it. And something I did realize again is something I also need to stop saying is that I forgot to put a box over the time in yesterday's episode as well. I know I forgot to do that again. I'm gonna try to remember. I don't know what more I could do to remind myself of that. I mean, I could set an alarm, but I don't know. Hopefully I'll get better at that in the future, and start putting those boxes over the time, so it makes the gameplay better. But basically, in this episode, we already have all of our towers down. So from this point on, all we're doing is just slowing down with sabotage and the ice ability, but our screens are filled with towers. Sub2Pewds does have a lot more towers on his side than I do because I messed it up in the beginning when I was selling all my towers and stuff, which is why he also has over almost $1 million more than I do. He doesn't have too much more eco than I do, but he has $1 million more because I kept like making very dumb mistakes, either putting down temples that suck up other temples or having to sell temples and rebuild them. Just those simple mistakes did make quite a big difference. But I didn't really test. So the thing I was confused about was that on Sub2Pewds' side, his screen's like a lot more filled up, but a lot of his spaces were filled with sabotages and ice towers. So what I did on my side differently was I filled it up with as much as I could with technological terrors and sun temples, and then I just had this little space to keep spamming down ice tower and then ninja to keep slowing down. And I thought that'd be more effective because the technological terrors I thought had more popping power than the ninjas and ice towers. So I thought just like having a little space to just keep slowing down was more effective. I'm not really sure of that, and I didn't really test it very well because I didn't fill up a lot of my spaces anyways, because since I took so long, the balloons kept filling up the screen. I couldn't see where to place because of the mistakes I made, and yeah, just because pretty much of the mistakes I made, it put me at a disadvantage in that sense. But I wish I would have filled up all my spaces, and I wish I would have done it right the first time. Because a few mistakes I made, which I think I talked about a little bit in the last episode, was with the temples. I did not get them at the max power they could have been. With the mortars, I just didn't. The mortars I just didn't have properly upgraded in the temples, and then I just didn't fill up all the spaces I could on my side because, again, doing all those other things took too long after all those mistakes, rebuilding and stuff, and then by the time I was able to start filling up my side, my screen was already filling up with oh my god, so I couldn't see. Every now and then I would try to fit more towers in, but I would also try to slow down as much as I could just so I didn't, because I needed to keep slowing down the balloons as much as I could. So doing that and then trying to place towers in spots that are empty was difficult because the balloons kept coming up the screen, and of another reason that I can't think of, another excuse I should say. But I'm not trying to make excuses for why I didn't fill up my screen with towers or anything. It was completely my fault. Of all the mistakes I made, all the mistakes that I made kind of put me at a disadvantage. So like, because at the beginning of the game when I was like rebuying, or no, when I was like selling the temples and then rebuilding them to make them stronger than they were before, and then still not managing to, because I was like panicking and, or it wasn't as much panicking as just not enough space, because I was kind of like rushing it since I was already kind of late to it, because of those mistakes that I made. So then just trying to rush it. I did panic a little bit because Oh My Gods made it pretty far, and they kind of caught me off guard because I only had like 1 or 2 temples when there was like 3 Oh My Gods on the screen. Again, because I had to sell the temples, so if I would have just done it right the first time, I wouldn't have had to sell them, and I would have been way better off. But it was pretty obvious throughout this game how much more popping power Sub2Pewds had than I did. So that was something I noticed as well. He had quite a bit more popping power. By the time he popped all the balloons on his side, there was still a few Oh My Gods on mine. So that was pretty, yeah, that was a pretty big damage difference. And as you can see, Sub2Pewds does have quite a lot more money than I do. He only has about 3,000 to 4,000 eco more than I do, but he has almost, I don't want to say almost double the money, but he has quite a lot more money than I do. Mainly because of those mistakes, once again, that I made, selling the temples and stuff like that. It just wasted a lot of money doing that. So that money difference, as well as the damage difference, were the most visual reasons, or like what happened because of the mistakes that I made. Early on, and yeah, I'd say mostly early on. That's kind of what damaged me throughout the entire thing, is all those mistakes I made early on really did impact how effective my towers were, and how, yeah, I'd say just how effective my towers were in terms of damage throughout the entire game. So I don't want to say like it's better to fill up your screen with technological terrors and then have a couple ice towers to keep slowing down. And I don't want to, because I don't want to say Sub2Pewds' strategy or my strategy was, because I don't know which, like the two strategies I'm talking about, by the way, is filling up my side, or filling up the screen with technological terrors and sun temples, and then just having one little spot for keep placing down the ice tower and the sabotage. Rather than filling up a lot of your screen with ice towers, sabotage, and technological terrors, and then sun temples. I wouldn't be able to, I wasn't able to calculate that very well in this game, because I didn't fill up my screen with as many towers as possible. I didn't do as much damage as I possibly could have, so it wasn't really a good test. Cause like I didn't know like if ice towers and sabotages, to have them down at all times, impacted the balloons apart from just the slowdown, the stalling abilities. I don't know if they impact the balloons apart from that, so if they did, then that would be a reason to place them down like Sub2Pewds did. I'm not saying Sub2Pewds did anything wrong or anything. I just don't know which way is better, to like fill up your screen with as much damage as possible. Like damage, I mean technological terrors and sun temples, or filling it up with ice towers, ninjas, and technological terrors. I don't know which, because I thought technological terrors would be better, because I thought the only purpose of ice towers and ninjas was to stall, and then the technological terrors do the most damage once you stall. But I don't know. That's definitely something I will have to figure out as well, because I don't know that. But there's quite a lot of Oh My Gods, and I wasn't really on top of the game in terms of, I made a lot of mistakes in this gameplay. And one of the mistakes I made throughout like the later game was I wasn't slowing everything down as soon as I should have. I should have been slowing things down quicker, like the Oh My Gods when they came on the screen. I should have been slowing them down quicker, which is another reason why they got farther on my side. Apart from the fact that I didn't do as much damage. So yeah, I definitely need to slow them down more. As well. That's also a mistake I made in Micro Challenge. I wasn't slowing down these Oh My Gods as much as I should have been, which was the reason I lost some of those games, was because I needed to slow them down sooner. So yeah, pretty common. I don't want to say common mistakes. I mean, these were in terms of like my gameplay though. Although I don't want to call it my gameplay, in terms of our gameplay, these were some of the common mistakes I made, or like some of my most common mistakes that I make. Which one would be not slowing down Oh My Gods as much as I possibly could be. I need to slow them down more. Which was like common between a lot of different game modes, like between the late game and between the micro challenges. And then yeah, that was probably the one that was common between multiple different games. But in this game I made a lot of mistakes. So yeah, but the other mistakes I made in this game are mistakes that are kind of just like that just happened on this game, because the mistakes that I made in this game don't really happen in any other game but like late games and extreme late games, like because you don't have sun temples and micro challenges or anything. So like the main thing that the mistakes I made in this would be common with is other late games and other extreme late games, if that makes sense. I think I kind of just confused myself there. I know some things I say can be confusing sometimes because as I talk, I kind of just talk what I think about rather than thinking about what I'm gonna say and then like wording it in a way that makes sense. Because I confuse myself quite a lot. Like what I just said confused me. Because like as I'm thinking, I kind of just throw out words that I'm thinking about rather than actually putting them together and making them make sense. So but we just did pass round 100 and passed the 55-minute mark, which this is actually the farthest I've ever made it in a late game, or extreme late game. I would consider this an extreme late game because it's past round 100. I think the point at which a late game stops, although this would still be considered late game because it is late game, but the way I kind of like put things in, the way I kind of look at it is like difficulties, but it's not difficulties, it's just stages in the game. But I see like early game round, or the start of the game till round 10 or 11, and then mid game from like 10 or 11 to 30 maybe. Yeah, nah, I don't know, till like, but like in this game there's quite a big margin between between late game, between like, because early and mid game are by quickly, like at around like 20, mid game is over, and then late game lasts from 20 to like 70, and then extreme late game is from like 70 up. So there's quite a big margin between late game, or in late game, and then an extreme late game, and then like the early two are very quick. I think I just lost track of what I was trying to explain. I don't even know what I was trying to explain anymore. But yeah, so I guess hopping right back into the gameplay here. Pretty much all that happens, well, I would say like, well, to me anyway, like early game and mid game are the most action-packed parts of the game, and then late game and extreme late game. I mean, late game, the early part of late game is a lot of building up the towers and just kind of filling up your screen with towers. And then extreme late game, you already have all your towers down, or in my case, I don't have them down yet because I messed them up. So I'm still replacing them, or selling temples, or trying to place more temples because I sucked them up in other temples. But after that, you have kind of all your towers laid out and kind of just fill up your screen with towers. And then extreme late game, or most of it anyway, is putting down your stallers. So like your sabotage, your ice tower, just slowing everything down, and kind of just repeating that process throughout all of the extreme late game portion. probably throughout some of the late game portion as well, but I'd say like the majority of the late game portion is, and I know this is considered late game as well, but I consider it like extreme late game, like past round 70. So like late game, that's like round 30 or 40 through 70. It's just kind of placing down towers, filling up your screen with towers, and then extreme late game is slowing everything down. That's kind of the way I look at it. Something I was also really confused about as well is the time in this game. It didn't slow, like when I was running it normally, like because when I was recording this it was running normally. I just sped it up in editing software, so like when it was running normally in replay mode, there was a huge lag spike there. But when it was running like normally in replay mode, the time went like regular time, like regular seconds. It didn't slow down, which I'm confused because in the 50-minute game that I played, the time slowed down, and then this one's 15 minutes longer and it doesn't slow down. So I'm not really sure what that was about, but we are getting pretty close to death here. These mobs are making it pretty far, and as you can see on Sub2Pewds' side, he's still handling his balloons very well. He's destroying them, popping them very well, and we do end up going down. If I didn't go down there, I feel like Sub2Pewds could have went like past round 115, round 120. I feel like he could have went a lot farther if I didn't get taken out there. So that's I felt kind of bad about getting taken out there because Sub2Pewds had so much potential and get so much farther, and I kind of just ruined it. But so thank you Sub2Pewds for playing me in this extreme late game. If you guys would like to play me, just let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get to each and every comment as soon as I possibly can. But I hope you guys did enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see all you beautiful people in the next episode.